Tiffany Cornelia.
My name is Bunga Insyira Wijaya, and we are from English Studies Program Batch 2018 from University of Indonesia. In this video, we would like to talk about the issue of Sundanese inability to pronounce the sounds and s.
We make this video due to the Phonetics and Phonology final project. We are choosing this topic because this topic happens a lot in our everyday lives, especially because we stayed in Depok, which the citizens mostly contain Sundanese accent.
Therefore, we are curious to find out the reason behind this phenomenon. We are interested to study this further, curious to find the solution, and looking forward to interact with the native speakers of Sunda language.
Have you ever heard a person says Fanta instead of Fanta? Or perhaps, instead of saying Teflon, this person says Teflon. And in personal experience, I once heard some people said Levi's jeans instead of Levi's jeans. They produce these sounds naturally, not by accident or intention. Their environment also influenced them to speak like that. It is obvious that some Sundanese find it difficult to produce the sound of, and z. Instead of producing the sound of and they change it to p. They also change the sound z into j and sometimes s. This raises different assumptions and becomes one of the research material among linguists. So why do they pronounce such things like that? First, I would like to tell you the brief history of their inability to produce those sounds. Sundanese has this alphabetic system called Aksara, and it is 1,000 years old. This Sundanese Aksara is known as Kaganga. In this Kaganga, there are no sounds that are similar to f, and z. Therefore, in the old times, Sundanese doesn't have words that contains these sounds, and they feel like they don't have to produce these sounds in their everyday lives. Even though the right pronunciation of English is not really important to Sundanese in general, but it becomes important to students who are Sundanese and expected to have good pronunciation in English, it also becomes important for Sundanese who want to work in multinational companies someday. Their behavior of mispronunciation is related to phonetics and phonology because it has something to do with producing the sounds fricative, which I will tell you in the next part. So why do they pronounce such things like that? First, I would like to tell you the brief history of their inability to produce those sounds. Sundanese has this alphabetic system called Aksara, and it is 1,000 years old. This Sundanese Aksara is known as Kaganga. In this Kaganga, there is no sound that are similar to f, and z. Therefore, in the old times, Sundanese doesn't have words that contains these sounds, and they feel like they don't need to produce the sounds in their everyday life. Their behavior is related to phonetics and phonology because it has something to do with producing the sounds fricative, which I will tell you in the next part. So what is fricative? Fricative is a part of phonetics. According to Britannica.com, phonetics is the study of speech sounds and their psychological production and acoustic qualities. It deals with configurations of the vocal tract used to produce speech sounds, the acoustic properties of speech sounds, and the manner of combining sounds so as to make syllables, words, and sentences. Fricative acts as manner of articulation, which is the way the airstream is affected as it flows from the lungs and out of the nose and mouth. Consonants with the characteristics that air escapes through a narrow passage and makes a hissing sound. Fricatives are also continuous consonant, which means that you can continue making them without interruption as long as you have enough air in your lungs. There are 9 fricatives in English consonants with different places of articulation. They are which is voiceless labiodental fricative, which is voice labiodental fricative, voiceless dental fricative, voice dental fricative, which is voiceless alveolar fricative, z, which is voiced alveolar fricative, sh, voiceless post-alveolar, zh, voiced post-alveolar, and which is voiceless glottal fricative. At first try, we can actually produce these sounds without even stopping, like a f or a s. But in this video, we will be focusing on the sound of, which is voiceless labiodental fricative, of, which is voiced labiodental fricative, and z, which is voiced alveolar fricative.
And now, I will talk about the Sunda Aksara, which is Kaganga. There are 4 kinds of Kaganga, which are Aksara Sunda Kuno, Aksara Sunda Cacarakan, Aksara Sunda Pegon, and Aksara Sunda Baku. However, we are going to discuss about the difference between Aksara Sunda Kuno and Aksara Sunda Baku. So, Aksara Sunda Kuno contains 25 sounds, which are Ka, Ga, Nga, Ca, Ja, Nya, Ta, Da, Na, Pa, Ba, Ma, Ya, Ra, La, Wa, Sa, Ha, A, I, U, E, O, Le. This aksara is the first and the original aksara that Sundanese have that acts as their identity. While aksara Sunda Baku or aksara Ngalagena that is created by the government contain additional sounds such as fa, va, za, ka with q, sa with x, ha, and sha. These sounds added to adjust with their national language, which is Indonesia, and the new form of aksara, which is Bahasa Sunda Kontemporer. And now, let's take a look at the aksara Sunda Kuno. As we can see, there are no and z sounds. This alphabetical system is not as complex as the sounds in the IPA system. So, to prove this phenomenon, we interviewed some of the native speakers of Sundanese and asked them to pronounce some words that contains f, v, and z sounds. Now, let's hear the examples of the change in pronunciation of f and v to pa, and z to j, and sometimes s by Sundanese people that we've interviewed before.
Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, pizza, cozy. Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, pizza, cozy.
Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, pizza, cozy.
Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, pizza, cozy.
Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, pizza, cozy.
Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, pizza, cozy.
Favorit, flour, teflon, poise, vinegar, vacation, crazy, dizzy, cozy.
As we can hear, they didn't produce the sounds I've mentioned before. Instead, they change the sounds into the closest sounds. The closest sounds means if the place of articulations of sounds is close to each other. The closest sound they know are p, j, and s. What is place of articulation, you might ask? Place of articulation is the point of contact where an obstruction occurs in the vocal tract between an articulatory gesture, an active articulator, typically some part of the tongue, and a passive location, typically some part of the roof of the mouth. So every sounds have different place of articulation, and in this case, p is voiceless bilabial, which means the articulator is lips. J is voiced palatal, which means the articulator is the hard plate or the roof of your mouth. And s is voiceless alveolar fricative, which means the articulator is the small bone just behind the upper front teeth that can easily be felt with your tongue. If they produce f and v, which both are labiodental, If they produce f and v, which both are labiodental, that means to pronounce these sounds, you need to use your upper teeth and lower lips. Therefore, they would need more effort to produce these sounds. So, instead of pushing the air through the teeth and lip, they use shortcut, which is using only their lips and produce bilabial sound, which is p. The same thing happened with z, which is voiced alveolar fricative. This phenomenon happened because not only that they don't have v and z sounds, but also because they are not exposed by languages that contains these sounds, such as Indonesian and English. However, these days, the younger generation of Sundanese, especially the one who has learned Indonesian and English, are able to differentiate these sounds.
Sundanese that are not able to produce the fricative sounds, especially of, and j, are the people who have little exposure to languages other than their own traditional language. Because in their traditional alphabets, they do not have these sounds as mentioned before. However, there are two solutions to solve this issue. First, we can prevent this kind of issues by providing and practicing education to the younger generation much earlier. We should habituate these fricative sounds from early age because honestly, children who are in their golden age are able to absorb knowledge faster and easier than people in the elder age, like adolescents and adults, especially when it comes to language. For example, when I was 4 years old, my mother brought me to her Chinese teacher to teach me Mandarin. She immediately teach me because she knows that children in this age have sponge-like brain, which means that they will absorb faster and memorize much longer everything that they thought. And it was true. Every now and then, sometimes I still able to hear and understand when people speak Mandarin, especially when I went to Singapore. I go there quite often, and sometimes the street vendor speaks to me with Mandarin, and I still understand them a little bit. So, in what age does a child can be called in their golden age? Golden age is when a child hits the age of 2 to 5 years old. It is known at this time of age is a huge opportunity for learning. We can teach the child our national language first, which is Indonesian, which consists these fricative sounds similar to the IPA, such as of, and z. In order to train their tongue, parents should talk with Indonesian every time they have a conversation with the child. After that, at the age of 5 to 12 years, children can learn foreign language such as English while they are playing and speaking. The key is to practice with the child as often as possible. Perhaps speak English at home or give the child extra lesson at an English course. The goal is to let the child accustomed to these sounds so that the child does not feel strange when pronouncing these sounds at a later age. And second, if you wanted to practice yourself so that you can produce these sounds correctly, you can, however, practice the "uf" and "uv" sound by looking at the mirror and put your upper teeth on your lower lip, like this. After that, you push air through the gap between your teeth and lip, like this. If you want to produce the "uv" sounds, you can do, however, by voicing and vibrating your vocal folds, like this. And to produce the sound, you can put your tongue to your gum ridge. Your gum ridge, which is the ridge that forms the border of your upper jaw behind your teeth. And again, you push the air from the gap of your ridge and your tongue, like this. And you can do it, and you have to do it also by voicing, which is vibrating your vocal folds. So next, the conclusion. Sundanese who are not exposed frequently with English might have the similar problems. And these problems happen because of the limited form of sounds in their traditional alphabet, which is Sunda Aksara, that contains 25 sounds, which are ka, ga, nga, cha, ja, nya, ta, da, na, pa, ba, ma, ya, ra, la, wa, sa, ha, a, i, u, e, o, le. So this limitation might cause the mispronunciation to the fricative sounds in the IPA. Their inability to produce of, and z sounds also comes from their environment that normalize the mispronunciation of these sounds. However, these problems might not occur to every Sundanese, and there are ways to overcome them. So you don't have to worry about your limitations in pronouncing the sounds. If you do have the problems, you can practice yourself over and over, because just like I said before, practice is the key.
So we have reached the end of the video.
We hope that any informations that we give throughout this video might be useful for Sundanese, especially who have this kind of issue.
Thank you for watching.